Hopefully, you are all here to learn to make more money, and hopefully you already are, and you're not still doing your tax returns as a hobby. But if you are, I've got 10 steps that I'd like to give you today to help you get out of that little status there. For me, failure has led to eventual success. I went from moonlighting WordPress to starting my company on Groundhog's Day in 2009. I realized that there was a need for things that premium theme support didn't cover. And so that was the area that I specialized in just helping people with their themes when they bought a theme and they're like, well, this is beyond support. So whether you're a CEO or a founder or solopreneur, I'll bet your boss is probably a jerk. He pushes you harder than you've ever been pushed, makes you stay up late, doesn't pay you enough, doesn't feed you enough. Yeah, your boss is definitely a jerk. So this is just how I do the business thing. I want to tell you that you need to know yourself first. That is the first key to making more money. If you don't know yourself, you're not going to be able to go any further. You need to know what makes you tick. What's the best time that you work? Are you a night owl? Are you an early morning person? What skills are you a rock star in? Or are you a rock star yet? Do you need to figure out what you want to be a rock star in? I'm an introvert, so I know what drains me, being around people. So this is a fun weekend. Also, does coding drain you? Does graphics drain you? Does switching back and forth drain you? Why are you doing what you're doing? That's one of the key things. We don't have all these answers when we start out, but it's important to figure out pretty soon, or you're not going to last very long. I've made some drastic changes in the last couple of months after doing this almost 6 years. Things weren't going the way I wanted them to in certain areas, and I spent some time thinking about what I wanted to do differently, and I've made some changes. Then you need to know your clients. Your clients are the ones that pay you. When I first started out, in the living room usually, because my wife was at work, I did not want to get on Skype for anything. Someone would use my contact form and say, here's my number, please call me. And I kind of had to. I didn't have any information about them. I didn't know what their project was going to be, so I had to talk to them. But I didn't want to because I was afraid I wouldn't know the answer to the question that they were going to ask. And it took me a few months to realize that you can say this phrase, repeat it after me if you want, I don't know, but I'll check. So you email them back the answer, and then you proceed if they're happy with your answer and they like how fast you did it. So it turns out that that first call is a great way to break the ice, learn some things about your client, and build rapport. Rapport equals leverage. If you get stuck in a situation and you have rapport with them, they'll more than likely be patient. I'm from Ohio. Wasn't born there, but I was raised there. And there's this state to the north of us that, we don't like them at the end of November for the big game. Well, one of my first clients is from that state. She since moved to California. So on that morning, I sent her an email. The subject line said, "Go Bucks." And I said, "Good luck," in parentheses. And 45 minutes later, she replies back, "You had a typo in your subject line. I fixed it for you. Go Blue." We didn't do any business that weekend, obviously, but on Monday, she had some work for me to do. It was just reconnecting with her. I don't even think that she would have thought about me if I hadn't sent that email, and I was taunting her. When you're thinking about your pricing, you have to realize that time does not equal value. Value equals value. You have to know what is valuable to your client. You have to know the value of the things that you are providing, whether it's a service or a product. As you improve in your business skills and your coding skills, your graphic skills, your speed and efficiency should improve. I know some guys who are way better at CSS than I am, and they can do in one day what would take me 2 weeks. And so if they're charging hourly, they're making less. It's worth a certain amount of money to me. I usually pay by the project. I usually charge by the project. Some businesses don't use that structure, but I think you're leaving some money on the table. An example in my life is my CPA. We started using one when we got into business, and I don't really care how long it takes him to do my taxes. I know from the first year we used him, he saved me several $100s. I don't care if it takes him 7 minutes. I will pay him a certain amount of money to save me $700. And I have a goal thermometer on our whiteboard. Every month, my wife is my CFO. She looks through our monthly budget, looks at what has to come in, what's going out. And so she writes a goal of what we need for our household budget. So that's our operating expenses. Then she sets another goal. That's the goal. It's about times 2. So when I hit that, I'm pretty happy. And then we have the BHAG. If any of you read the book, I think it's Good to Great or something like that. Big, hairy, audacious goal. I do not expect to meet this goal. But if I do, we've told our son we're going to go have a party because it's 3 times what we need. That's retained earnings, that's equipment purchases, and some fun. So without goals, how do you know how you're doing? I mean, you might be having a really good life and life is good, but if you have a goal, you might realize you can do better, or you might realize that you're actually not doing all that well because you start talking about goals with other people and they say, well, why is it that low? You're setting the bar too low. And those are good friends that tell you that. There's a problem with too much communication. The problem is there's no such thing. A couple months ago, we had WordCamp Tampa across the state, and my friend John Hawkins from 9 Seeds, maybe you've heard of that company, he was telling a story about a server that went down, and he got the email, and he started working on it. He was working on it for a couple of hours, and the client started getting panicky, and he's contacting the other people in the company, what's going on? And they found out John was working on it, and they said, well, did you bother to tell the client that you were working on it? He's like, no, I wanted my first email to be like, we fixed it. But the client was panicking for 2 hours that his site was down. So I tweeted that I've never had a client complain that I've communicated with them too much. I often schedule my projects out about 12 weeks, so it's not uncommon for me to go 10 or 12 weeks without talking to a client after I collect thousands of dollars from them. They usually don't panic about that, but sometimes they ask, when are you getting to me? So about 1 or 2 weeks before I'm ready, I've made a habit of emailing them and saying, has anything changed about the project? Because sometimes it has. If I go ahead and start on the project, sometimes I'm going down the wrong road because a new theme has come out and they've seen it. Oh, they want that theme now. So I give them a heads up, they're about ready to start. I give them an idea of 1 or 2 weeks to complete it, something like that. And then we start more frequent communication while we're doing the project. You definitely need to be aware that people are watching you on Twitter and on Facebook. And if you say you're going to do something, you need to do it or people will talk. You need to account for overages in your projects so that you don't have to change the price midstream. I've maybe only done that 3 or 4 times in 6 years, and I felt dirty doing it. I had to go take a shower. If you're on a shoestring budget and you feel like that's going to get you in a pinch, you might want to pass on the project because it's probably not a project that you want to do. Be upfront about your shortcomings, like if you hire out for certain aspects of a project, some PHP development, or they want a slider and you need someone to program that for you. And if you run into a situation while you're on the project, talk to them about it immediately. I've run into this, I'm going to fix it, I don't expect it to cost you anymore. Or if it's a major problem, that's when you have the discussion about a price change, because that sometimes is a scope change. No one anticipated it. And most definitely do not take money and then don't do the work. I have lost track of how many times people have come to me for a project who have already lost thousands of dollars because they gave money to someone who didn't do the job, or even started it sometimes. I like to go by the golden rule with all of my business dealings. I contract out for certain programming an awful lot, and I can tell you that the people that I don't go back to are the ones that I had an issue with. I didn't feel like I was treated the way that I wanted to be treated. I felt like I got ripped off, or I didn't get the treatment, the golden glove or whatever. So I can put myself in that shoe with my client more easily because I'm often a client just for hiring out for contracting. Recently, this summer, we had a very large project and I was the subcontractor. The client was a month late getting the content to my client, and I had to start another project. I wasn't just going to sit there and twiddle my thumbs. So I was then not available for another month. And we rushed through as soon as I was available, and we made some crazy deadlines. I worked 3 nights straight until like 1 a.m. We got it all done. They said, we're not happy with the progress we've got right now. We've already paid you 25%, and that's all we're going to pay you. In reality, we were about 85% done because everything was in the back end. All we had to do was images, some content, and some styling. So he was in a position of being stuck. He was out money, I was out money. We both needed to get paid. So I was having to be empathetic with him and myself at the same time. It was very odd. So we both used the golden rule. We both pushed to get some more money to us. We explained the situation. And we have done business since. So if you're amicable, things will work out and no one gets hurt. If you get hurt, try to make contact again later, because you really don't want to burn a bridge in this industry, because people will talk. And I don't want to do business with Jesse. He did this in 2007, and I don't think he's a good guy. So don't do that. As a business owner, you will have to trust your gut an awful lot. And I learned to do this in high school. I haven't always practiced it though, but we were taking an ACT and SAT class after school. And one week the teacher said, I think too many of you are changing your answers after you've given your first answer. I want to see this week, go with your gut on every question. And then the next week, we allowed ourselves to change our minds if we felt like we had a good reason. The first week's scores were often, they blew them out of the water, but they're often up to 300 points higher. It was pretty dramatic. So you have to use your gut on pricing, whether or not to sign an NDA, whether or not to abide by their schedule. Like, I can't do it in a month. You have to use your gut an awful lot. So you know how you feel, and you just need to go with it. You might have to figure out why you feel a certain way, but maybe you don't. And you probably don't need to tell your client why you feel a certain way. But sometimes it is fun to tell them why you feel a certain way, because sometimes it's enlightening, and it builds a rapport. It's just a communication rapport thing. As a teenager, I was taught that plans go awry when you do not have wise counsel. And I found a quote from George Patton. The time to take counsel of your fears is before you make an important battle decision. That's the time to listen to every fear you can imagine. When you have collected all the facts and fears and made your decision, turn off all your fears and go ahead. Seems like every 6 to 12 months, I've had to make a business decision that I wasn't comfortable just making within our house with my wife. I'd take some time to get on Skype calls, Skype chats, have some lunches with people. Most recently, in early October, I decided to team up with WP Valet. Some of them have spoken here already. And it took us a month to make that decision. I talked to someone who had joined a 2-person agency, talked to a person who ran his own business, ran his own agency, and then joined an agency. And I talked to at least 4 or 5 other people who were 5, 10 years more years of experience in business than me. So by the 3rd week, I was sleeping very well. I didn't have any stress. I didn't have any of those fears like Patton's talking about. I faced all my fears and I was sleeping well. So we went ahead and pulled the trigger in November. So I'm part of a team. I'm still doing Peterson Media Group, but it was a huge change, and that was what I was alluding to on that second slide. Just, you have to know yourself. And then you have to revisit your pricing at some point. Let's say you've got a handle on it. You're competing on value. You understand what your clients want. You understand what you want. The inevitable happened to me, and I got burnt out. I love what I do, don't get me wrong. I love everything about it. No, I love the idea of it because I don't like wearing all the hats. I was getting exhausted from collecting clients, doing the billing, negotiating the price. Then I had to do the work. You get the deposit, and then that's great. You got $3,000 in the bank, and then you have to do the work. So that was wearing on me. So I'd come downstairs for lunch, and my wife would say, "How's your day going?" I'd say, "It's okay. I've gotten one thing done, but it wasn't the one thing that I was supposed to do today, and I have to get it done by supper." So I was still working for someone, and I said I had to do something, and I didn't get it, and I'd try again the next day, and I was just feeling like a failure an awful lot. So you have to revisit the pricing to make sure that you're getting the clients that work with you and sometimes they even work for you. But if you get the right kind of clients, that stress goes way, way down. And you're in business for yourself, so enjoy it. You don't have a boss, except for that jerk. So if you don't like what you're doing, you should just go get a job and work for another boss that you don't like. So I do have some tips if you're feeling stuck and burnout. I get up every morning at the same time, 5:03 a.m., because 5 o'clock would be too early. Just face it, 5 o'clock is too early. I eat protein for breakfast. If I don't, I will crash about 10:30 a.m. I make a really good attempt to go walking every day, at least to the mailbox. It's a half-mile round trip. We live in townhomes, so we have to walk to the mailbox. I've stopped checking email before I'm done with my walk and had breakfast. Because if I don't, I will be thinking about that one email from that one client the whole walk, and I'm not enjoying it with our son, and he's just annoying me because of this email. The email has nothing to do with him, but I don't want to pick up acorns today because this email is, oh, no. So don't check your email before you've had breakfast, gone for a walk, or whatever you do, box or whatever. I've started trying to do the lemma nap after lunch, a 20 to 70 minute nap. Usually depends on how successful I was at going to bed at the same time every night. Because if I'm getting up at 5:03 every morning, 1 a.m. is really not very much ahead of 5 a.m. So I feel really bad going to bed at 1 o'clock and realizing I have to get up in 3.5 hours. So I try to go to bed. Well, actually, now I try to stay up until 9. I'm usually falling asleep by 9 now. And be social. I keep Twitter open all the time. Those are where most of my friends are now. I know it's sad. I do open up Skype every now and then, and that's really good for chatting and the constant communication. Now that I'm with a team, there's Hip Chat. Oh boy, that's a new world. I've had to turn the little ding off. But have lunches every now and then, meet real people, the ones with skin and stuff. So I am at J. Peterson on Twitter. At WP Valet, I'm the Genesis lead. I've been doing StudioPress 100% since 2009. And we have one Genesis framework course at Treehouse. Zach is in the room. There is more coming. And I'd like to know if you have any questions about making more money. Yes?
Can you talk really quick about the NDA, when to sign and when not to sign? What is, you have like a thinking process on those?
Some NDAs are pretty much unenforceable with some of the terms that they have. They make your life more difficult. They want you to get an NDA for every single person that you talk to the project about, whoever's going to code with you. Like, if you need help, they've got to sign an NDA now, but you don't know if they're going to sign the NDA because you can't talk to them about it. So I've just started telling people, I want to work with you. I'm not going to sign your NDA, and here's why. And most of the clients will say, thanks for being honest with me. That's a good start. So It kicks things off. It's either going to go very bad and you don't want them, or it's going to go very well and you've earned instant rapport. Bueller? Yes.
Out of everything you've listed on your slides, what was the hardest change for you to make?
Joining WP Valet. I was
What was that personally?
personal difficulty. Admitting that I need help was pretty hard. I tried to do it solo and not get someone to help me with a large thing. As I raised my prices, which I quadrupled them back in March, I quadrupled my prices, I reached a new client level, and those clients wanted bigger and better sites. And I was having to form teams just to complete the projects. And that's stressful, it's expensive, so it was eating into the price that I just raised. So that process of raising the prices and working those last 6 or 8 months was really hard. Yes.
As far as seeking wise counsel, what do you do in order to find those that you feel are wiser than you and like not make it feel awkward by forcing it to become a part of your life now?
Good question. How do I find wise counsel? I watch what they've done with their business, whether or not they're successful in their sales. You can get a good sense of whether they're successful in their sales and their support, and in the community, do they have a good reputation? So some examples, the obvious examples would be Pippin Williamson with Pippin's Plugins, and Norcross and Chris Lemma. Like, just, you find these people as you're in conferences or on Twitter, and you meet people in meetups. You'll be able to pick them out. They're friendly, they want to help, they've got the heart of a teacher. They're not going to talk down. I've maybe only had 2 people blow me off in 6 years. It's almost everybody wants to help each other. That's what WordPress community is all about. Very open.
Yes, Jesse, so you talked a lot about tactics of making more profit, and you found a lot of success in taking your career to the next level and teaming up and all that. What can you tell us a little bit about what motivates you beyond the dollars? Because at a certain point, that becomes something that you're sort of working for instead of working towards.
You cut to the chase. The question is, what's my motivation for making more money? Somewhat? Yeah.
What's the big goal?
The big goal,
Because working for money.
yes, is empty. Working for money is empty. Money buys you opportunities to do what you do want to do. And for me, that is time with my family, time taking care of myself, and just making the world a little better place. So if I'm stuck in my office for 10 hours a day for 6 days a week, I am not meeting that goal because I got 2 people downstairs that just want to see me. And so if I make more money, we don't have to struggle. I get to spend 6 hours a day with them. And that's my goal. Yes.
Can you talk about an exit strategy? At what point do you feel everything that you've done, and where do you stop? When you feel like that's...
I haven't quite figured out what my exit strategy is and where I stop, but it's somewhere around residual income supporting some level of lifestyle and still having to work some. I don't know if it's going to be a product or a recurring service that I don't have to perform where the service is a product. But it'll be something along those lines where I do a lot of hosting, and those people pay me annually. So January is going to be a really good month for me. I like seeing the little FreshBooks prediction based on recurring invoices. So yeah. When enough is enough, I'll know it, but it's not going to be extravagant. if I could maintain my lifestyle and not have to work, that would be a really good day. Yes?
Do you think you gained a degree of credibility by working for yourself in your own group that you wouldn't have had if you continued to work for other people constantly?
Did I get credibility working by myself? I think so. I think, well, I definitely took personal pride in running my own business by myself. And I did not want to work for another company unless they paid me $1 million a year. I've been laid off enough times. I've been fired by one person who said, "You're not worth it anymore." So I didn't want to put myself in that position anymore. So I took pride in working for myself. So I built what I was considering my reputation as a solopreneur. Yes. I wasn't getting that in the corporate world, no. Yes?
I was curious, kind of close to the beginning of the presentation, you said that you were an introvert.
Yes, I
And I
am.
was wondering, some of the steps really deal a lot with people, I was wondering what types of strategies did you employ to kind of help you as you were doing some of these things?
Time alone, well, that 5:03 a.m. is very important to me. If someone wakes up early, it's not a really fun day for me because I didn't get my alone time. I like my alone time after dinner. I'll just sit on the edge of the couch and play my iPad for 15 minutes, and that's all I needed because we just talked for half an hour. So I just needed some time. So when I get home, it's going to be some comfort food, sit in a corner in my sweats, and watch some movies, and hope no one calls. Yes. Okay. I know that if you do a product, you need to then support a product. So I've chosen to do theme customization because you deliver something and then the only support is actually an ongoing thing where they pay you instead of me paying someone else to do support for someone who has bought something. And I didn't want to start a theme company because I didn't really want to do that kind of boss leadership. I didn't want to deal with the taxes of having employees and stuff like that. I don't consider myself a leader yet. I've still got a lot of growing to do. So I'm fine managing projects, that kind of stuff, but I wasn't ready to lead a big thing like Brian Gardner does. I chose Genesis because there's a common code base, there's a big community, and it just made sense for me to have everybody always looking at the same set of code every day. Made sense to me. Thanks. Oh, one more.
Prior to going on board with WP Ballet, when you were doing pretty much all your own stuff, other than word of mouth, what would you say was the number one thing that brought you clients?
The StudioPress developer page is my number one referrer for being, when you do a certain level of customization to a site and they see that and they see you being helpful in the community, you have a chance of getting on that page. And that's where most of my referrals were coming from. And then that just builds up. 5 years of that just built up. Yes?
You said you work primarily with Genesis and StudioPress. What happens if someone's got a WooCommerce site, WooThemes? Are they using, iThemes or Elegant Themes? Do you pull them off of that, or do you just work with what they've got?
I either tell them I don't work on that, or I can help you if you get on Genesis. I can be picky. I'm in a position now where I can be picky, and I just say, no, thank you. I turn away about 80% of the people that contact me.
I'm available.
But you might not want those people. Thanks, you've been a great audience.